Ever tried to paint loose, expressive flowers but ended up with an awkward hot mess? Me too. Let's try this whoosh method to put the fun back into our watercolour flowers. Everyone seems to love painting flowers, but actually, I think they can be quite tricky in watercolour, especially if you start with a careful drawing, which seems like the right way to go. But I think if you're after loose, expressive, slightly abstract flowers, the best thing to do is skip the drawing altogether and let the paint do a lot of the work for you. That's why I've started in my sketchbook. I think this is important too, and I'll come back to that. But I've started in my sketchbook and I just put down blobs of colour. I'm calling this the whoosh method. Maybe if we were going to be formal, we could give it a fuller name and call it the blob and whoosh method, because all I'm doing is putting down a blob of colour rather than trying to tell myself I'm carefully trying to paint a petal. I'm just putting down a mark and then rinsing off my brush and using a clean damp brush to drag towards that blob and let the colour spread out, whoosh out, hence the whoosh, to create the petal shape. That way you get this lovely variation in the pink from light to dark. And you also get that kind of delicate feeling of the petals, which I think, this is kind of an effortless way to do that. Obviously, you're not going to get a perfect rendition of a botanical flower here, but that's not what I'm going for. This is the perfect project for someone who wants to fill a page with lovely, colourful flowers and just enjoy the process, to find the fun in painting flowers again. My plan is to create this abstracted scene of a sort of a sea of flowers, a bed of beautiful blooms with a few little bees buzzing around the top. So to give that sense of space and a bit of distance, I'm starting with my palest pink at the back. And of course, you could do any colours you like, but I would suggest picking a kind of range of colours and start with the lightest ones. I mean, you could do yellow, then go to orange, then go to red, for example, to get your variation, or yellow, orange, pink, something like that. But I've got lots of different pinks, so I'm using those. I've got the palest pinks in the back, and now I've just swapped to a slightly darker pink for my next rows of blob and whoosh blooms. And I'm also taking the opportunity to use some of this darker pink and drop in a few extra marks into my earlier paler pink blobs, just to add a little bit more interest and variety to those earlier flowers, because that's exactly the way they seem. The way the light comes through the petals creates this interesting variations, and sometimes when those petals overlap, they look a little bit darker. But all of that is so much easier to do if you just let the watercolor kind of naturally create these darks and lights by dropping in extra color, for example, or by using the whoosh method to create that softness. Oh, I said I wanted to tell you a bit more about why I chose the sketchbook. And I think a sketchbook is automatically a place that gives you a little bit more permission to play. So I think if you've been feeling frustrated with flowers, grab your sketchbook, because it instantly feels a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. Um, I will say, though, that this is probably a bit of an easier project if you've got better quality paper. So it obviously works very well just on your standard watercolor paper. And if you are doing it in the sketchbook, as long as the sketchbook will take some water, you're probably going to do just fine. But remember that the results will vary. The way the pigments travel, the way the water is absorbed into the paper is very different depending on the type of paper that you are using. You can see that because I am putting my blobs next to each other before they have dried, obviously where the edges connect, the colors will whoosh together a little bit more so the flowers can join up. And I'm totally okay with that. I love watching that happen. That connection of one flower to another every so often is also what's going to help us get that feeling of the sea of blooms. I also really like having little patches of unpainted paper. I think those are quite important too, because if I don't have those, there'd be a tendency for it to just look like a flat wash, which is another way of going about it. That's just a further level of abstraction. And really, all painting is an abstraction. To take something from the three-dimensional reality and turn it into the two dimensions of the paper requires abstraction. So the question is only how abstract do you want it to be? And I think when you're just wanting to relax and play with the color and the paper, that leaning into abstraction is exactly where to go. Now I'm onto one of my favorite colors. It's this deep quinacridone violet, and I'm into what's probably going to be my closest row of flowers. So I'm letting them be a little bit bigger and just using the shape of my brush to kind of pull out a few more petals. This whoosh method of taking your damp brush away from the color mark and dragging it towards the color blob is very helpful in creating those light edged tips. If you go the other way with which is another way of softening an edge, you tend to pull the color out and it ends up a lot more even. Starting away from the blob and going towards it gives you a little bit better of a chance to get a lighter edge to the petal. And I've got a few other pinks that I can't resist dropping in there because this is why, this is the fun of painting that I was talking about. One of the reasons that I think we love painting flowers is the glorious color. So painting a big bed of flowers like this is the perfect chance to drop in a few extra colors. And I think more colors is always better here. Dropping in these little flecks of additional color into the soft marks really makes your flower so much more interesting and so much more lifelike. Actually, I don't really mean lifelike, I mean full of life. I think that's a better way of putting it. And because everything is still damp, there should be these lovely transitions. And this is also where this is just a relaxing way to fill up a sketchbook page, but don't underestimate how helpful it is at getting in a few more brush miles. It's a little bit more practice at seeing how your particular paints and your particular brushes react with your particular paper. And in something like this, you soon get a feel for just how much particular colors move. For example, my quinacridone violet, that is what I call a bossy color. It's a really rich, strong pigment. And I really get a lot of whoosh out of it compared to some of the others that are a little bit more reticent, shall we say. And that's a very useful thing to know going into another painting. The other thing that I see happening is where you have a lot of water, if you've done the softening and you've used quite a lot of water, you can end up with a little bit of a puddle. And a puddle will give you something of a cauliflower mark. I've got another video about that. I will pop a link in the description for you. But here, I think those cauliflower marks are actually lovely because they really look like edges of petals. Now, if we've got all these bloom heads, they definitely need something to hold them up. And I like to start with a little bit of water here and there because I want to keep that loose feeling going. And instead of trying to carefully paint a background underneath, I will just let the colors soften out. And again, the paint and the paper is going to do it for me. I've chosen a green and I'm using the very tip of my brush. I'm just using the same brush for everything. These lovely big brushes are wonderful. They're so versatile. You can use the big belly for big covering big surfaces and creating big petals, but you can also use that fine tip to create delicate little stems. And using that flicking action creates the lovely energetic grasses. So it's great fun to do this, and it's amazingly quick way to fill in the bottom section here where we're putting in the stem. So I'm connecting those, and I'm trying not to do a perfectly straight line from the base of each flower. What I'm trying to do is give it a little bit of a curve, because that again gives it a bit more life. That's the way they are in the garden. They have a bit of a gesture to them. They have a gentle curve. So let's make sure we pop that in. And those little white spaces that we were mentioning before that I've got in between some of those flowers, those are great opportunities to put in little bits of the stem. So it's just little hints of, tiny little extra marks of green. It's the sort of thing where it's a tiny mark, that doesn't have to be perfectly drawn or carefully thought out, so easily suggests what we are looking at. When I add the little green stems into the flowers that I painted first, those are obviously going to be the most dry. So sometimes the little mark will sit just all on its own into the, in the little white space. But sometimes it connects with the petal and you get a bit more of that whoosh effect. And I think that's perfect too, because either way, it doesn't really matter. When we're painting something like this, we're not tied to some reference photo. We're not desperately trying to make it look like something else. We are letting the paint do what it does on the paper, and we can then see what we can make of it. It's a bit like that game you play as kids, staring at the clouds and seeing what shapes you can see in there. If you approach it in a bit more of that way, it feels so much more fun and freeing. Now, I used a green that has separated out into the wet areas and given me some variety, but I also want to put in some of the colors that I used in the flowers. So I've got my quinacridone violet, which is the darkest color, my sort of purpley color there, and I'm putting in a few of the same sort of marks. I suppose what I'm really painting is the shadows in between those stems and leaves. But I think they're quite important. They kind of anchor that bottom section. The other thing that does is it makes the top half and the bottom half talk to each other. It gives the painting a little bit more of a harmony whenever you are repeating the colors. Plus, I always think it's quite a helpful thing when you've got greens to have put in something in the red family, because it is the opposite. So when I say opposite, it's opposite. Red and green are opposite on the color wheel. And so what that does is desaturate the green in some places. When you have something bright like these flowers, they look even brighter and more vibrant and lovely if there is some desaturation around them. And that's really what we're achieving when we put something reddish into the greens. But look how easily we can do that. Again, it's just letting the watercolor do most of the work for us. Well, I think we need some little stars of the show here, and some buzzy bees might just be the ticket, I reckon. So I put little flecks of yellow. I kind of did it because I knew I wanted to add the bees. So again, this is a way of repeating my colors. And I'm actually using the same approach. This blob and whoosh method is also the way I'm going to paint the bees, because I'm not painting a bee by thinking, okay, it's got segmented bodies and 6 legs, is it? And how many wings and where are the antennae and all that? No, that's far too hard. Really, when these little bees are buzzing over a sea of blooms like this, all you see is a little bean shape. So I'm painting a little yellow bean, but I will drop in a little bit of purple underneath it. What I'm painting there is a bit of shadow, because I'm trying to give my little bee some volume. I'm still trying to make it look like a curvy little bee. So I'm dropping that into the yellow that is damp, and those edges should soften out too. It happens gradually, so if it's not softening out straight away, don't panic. Just let's just see how it dries. Now, I don't use black paint. I know the thing that a bumblebee needs is some black stripes. I do have a colour called Moonglow, which is one of my favourites. It's a dark, muted, moody purple, and I'm going to use that as my black. You might have a Payne's grey, but honestly, you could use an indigo or something like that. If you've got black paint and you want to use it, go right ahead. But you can definitely paint things that are black without having black paint. So I've dropped in some black on the tips of either end of my little bean shape, and now I've got the paint quite thick, not much water at all in this mix, so that I can paint a little stripe or two over the bean body, and I'm trying to curve that stripe a little bit as well, because again, I want my little bee to look fat and round and fuzzy. Because the yellow is still damp, the edges should blend, but because the paint is thick, not too much water in my dark colour, it shouldn't just turn into one messy uniform colour, if you know what I mean. The stripes should stay distinct, but the edges soften so that he looks like my little fuzzy bee that I'm trying to suggest. I will use the tip of my very fine brush to kind of hint at, you know, his little antenna, maybe the suggestion of a leg here or there, but I'm definitely not trying to do perfect bee anatomy or try and think about the position of his body in space. I'm just doing little suggestions because it is surprising how little information you actually need, how few details are required for it to still make sense. I mean, we just looking at those little yellow and black, we all know what that is, don't we? Now, what about those wings? Again, the whoosh method to the rescue. The wings can be any colour. I'm going to stick with my Moonglow colour, but I'm making it quite pale. And all I'm doing is putting a little mark, a tiny blob, which I will then soften out the same whoosh way that I did for the flowers. And I want to do that because, you know, the wings are very fine, aren't they? Almost transparent. So the paler the paint is here, the more that idea is going to be clear. Since watercolor is transparent, we're seeing more of the white paper through it, so that's really giving us exactly the look we need to suggest those little wings. We don't need perfect shapes for them either, because remember, they're moving all the time, so who knows what shape they're in. Now, I can't resist putting in a bit of splatter. When I'm painting something like this, particularly flowers, the splatter always feels like it's suggesting pollen to me. So with the little bees and my little splashes making me think of pollen, I can't think of anything I would rather do to finish off the painting. And since I splattered the pink in the sort of top section, I think I'd like to splatter a bit of the yellow down into the grassy area. Remember, most of that is still wet, so the colours should still settle in, and it'll just give us a bit more interesting texture. One of the things I've really enjoyed in this project is using some of my favorite granulating colors. If you want to know more about those, this is the video you'll want to watch next. Happy painting!